Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Thank you for stopping by. And today I'm going to talk about the reason why I dislike grappling in EA Sports UFC 3. Let's get right into it. First things first, let's talk about transition denials. And to explain why I don't like the way transitions are denied in EA Sports UFC 3, allow me to take you back to UFC Undisputed 3. And I'm going to use the guard to explain this. In UFC Undisputed 3, to deny a transition, you simply hold the right stick either to your left or to your right. Using the guard as an example, when you hold the right stick to your right or to your left, you'll notice the bottom fighter closes his guard, just like fighters do when they want to keep opponents in their guard. And once the guard is closed like that, your opponent cannot pass your guard. So, to stop someone from passing your guard, all you had to do was hold the right stick left or right. Blocking a transition worked the same way in every single position on the ground. You simply hold the right stick to stop the opponent from advancing. This system was better because it was easy to pick up. A casual player could pick up the game and immediately understand the core basics of the ground game. Now, when you compare that to UFC 3, the EA Sports UFC 3, before you can learn how to deny transitions, you have to first memorize transitions. And it also all depends on the camera as it changes. One more thing is, you have just one chance to get a deny right. If you flick the stick and you deny in the wrong direction, that's it. The opponent is going to pass your guard, and personally, I don't think this is how grappling works. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, as I'm not a grappler, but if I have a fighter in my guard and I notice he's trying to pass by stepping over my left leg, for example, I don't just have one chance to get that right, or have my guard pass completely. It's not that easy to pass the guard, and quite frankly, something as basic as denying a transition should be simple, easy to pick up, and easy to understand for a new player to the franchise. But right now, it's simply not. Right now, it's way more complicated than it needs to be, and that's not good. So that's number one. The second thing I don't like about the grappling has to do with faking transitions. Now, this one is by far the most irritating aspect of grappling in this game for me personally, and honestly, any other MMA game I've played so far. There's just something about faking transitions that these games just constantly goes towards. Everything revolves around faking transitions. You cannot win a grappling match against a high-level player in UFC 3 unless you know how to fake transitions, and that's just not right. Again, I'm not a grappler, but let's examine what a transition fake actually is. You're basically fooling your opponent into thinking you're gonna go one way and then you go the other way. Simple, right? But is that really how grappling works though? If I have a fighter in my guard and he pretends to pass to my left and I bite on it, but then he immediately switches to my right, am I then completely screwed? Do I then lose the ability to block the real transition and just have my guard pass completely? Are grapplers that easily fooled? You lose all ability to deny a pass just because the other fighter pretended to pass to one side but then actually passed to the other side? This is not how grappling works, and that's why every high-level grappling match in this game is just a battle of transition fakes. I think it's boring, and it makes the grappling feel extremely slow and sluggish. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the fighters don't actually fake transitions in real life. They do, I'm pretty sure they do, but not to the extent that it's done in this game. In this game, it's everything. You're not competing with a good player on the ground unless you fake transitions and also understand how it works. And the big disconnect when it comes to faking is that on the feet, it actually matters more. Feinting is a striking thing. It's something that is extremely important. In a real striking battle, you cannot compete with a good striker unless you feint, unless you understand how feinting strikes works. It's not a grappling thing, it's a striking thing. But in the game, it's all switched. In the game, on the feet, feinting is really not that important. You can be considered an elite level striker in UFC 3 without having to feint at all. On the ground, no, you cannot be successful against a good grappler in the game unless you know how to fake transitions. Again, this makes the ground game feel extremely slow and sluggish, and personally, I hate having to go through all that. I do not think it should be the bread and butter of grappling in a video game. I don't think so. Speaking of slow and sluggish, one more thing I don't like is the role that stamina plays in grappling. Grappling in real life is usually fast-paced. In fact, most times when I see it, it is fast-paced. There's a lot going on, and with certain fighters, like fighters that really love to scramble, like Timothy Elliott, for example, or Tony Ferguson, it's downright chaotic in there. They are constantly moving, changing positions, reversing positions, throwing up submissions, striking, changing again. And while all this is happening, they are using up a lot of energy, right? Sure. But it doesn't slow them down. In the game, though, you get one of your attempts to pass denied, and your short-term stamina shoots down so much. So now you gotta sit there and wait for it to recharge again, and in the meantime, nothing is really happening. Hell, even if you get a successful transition, your short-term stamina goes down enough that you have to cuddle it, and baby it, and babysit it, and wait for it to recharge first before you can then keep working. It makes everything feel like a chore. Rather than depend so much on short-term stamina, I prefer if it took off your long-term stamina and just barely affected your short-term stamina. This way, grapplers can remain busy and only really pay for all that activity in the later rounds when their long-term stamina has taken a hit due to all that activity. Jose Aldo, for example, doesn't just lay on his back once he gets taken down. He wiggles back and forth over and over and over again until he stands back up. And yes, this all takes energy and will eventually tire him out, which is why most times when he has been controlled on the ground, it's in the later rounds when he's already tired. This is how it should be. I'm not saying that we should not be able to control opponents in the earlier rounds of the fight. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that it should not be dependent on short-term stamina so much. I should not deny one transition and then have my opponent's stamina bar shoot down so much. It's not realistic. That's not the way it works. Not this thing, where we constantly babysit our stamina with every single small transition attempt we make. It's boring as heck, and it's not how actual grappling works, and I hope that changes. Switch it from short-term stamina to long-term stamina. That's what it should affect. Next up is ground and pound. Am I the only one that just cannot stand the ground and pound in this game? Now, I'm a striker. I favor striking. So, when I usually take people down in the game, when I want to grapple, I tend to favor ground and pound. There are different kinds of grapplers. They're control-based grapplers, they're scramble-based grapplers, and then they're the kind of grapplers that want to take you down and ground and pound. You got a guy like Tony Ferguson who's like a scramble-based grappler. He scrambles, and locks in a submission. You got a control-based grappler, someone like Damian Maia. Once he gets you on the ground, he wants to keep you there for as long as he possibly can. And then you got guys like Habib who wants to take you down and rain down hell on you. I like that sort of grappling. I want to take people down and I want to pound on them. I want to use punches. I want to strike. I want to hit them over and over again. But in some instances on the ground, strikes that look like they don't do a lot of damage actually does a lot of damage in a way that makes no sense at all. Like in side control, the fighter isn't postured up at all. You're taking elbows and then you just die, like knocked out cold. Like, when have we ever seen anyone knocked out cold like that from side control? Now, I'm not talking about the crucifix position. I'm talking about side control. And I'm also not saying that fighters don't take damage from side control. You absolutely do. But at the very least, the fighter that's doing the damage is postured up or trapped against the cage. You need some way to be able to generate enough power to hurt someone. And from side control in the game, I just don't see how I'm supposed to believe that these little pity-pat elbows are powerful enough to cause a clean knockout. And that's what happens. Especially when you consider the fact that you cannot actually rock anyone on the ground in this game. You just hit them, and then they die. It's like they skip a step. You skip the step from hurting someone, having them stunned or rocked, and then you just go from hitting them, knockout. Where is the part where they are rocked? Where is the part where they're actually hurt? You know what I mean? And it ruins the immersion for me. Apart from that, the striking animations are so bad. They don't look believable at all. They look like the fighter is pulling their punches and there's no follow through at all. And I think this has to do with the way it was mocapped. It does not look like you're actually following through on those shots. Like you just taps over and over and over again. And then the opponent just dies. The ground and pound definitely needs to be reworked. It needs to look and feel more powerful, and I have some ideas on how that could be done, which I'll save for a different video. The last thing that I don't like about the grappling in this game is the lack of movement on the ground. Even while on the ground, the fighter on top in real life can manipulate his opponent's body, move him to the cage for instance, trap him there, and use the cage to beat him up. Also, the fighter on the bottom can butt scoop his way to the cage and use the cage to stand back up if he has those skills. But in the game, once you get taken down, you lay where you are. You cannot move from there. And the only movement that we see are movements that happen due to a transition. Compare that to UFC Undisputed 3, for example. If I get taken down against the cage and I don't want to be trapped against the cage, I can turn my fighter's body away from the cage over and over again. And the fighter on top, if he wants to keep me against that cage, he can try to reposition my fighter's body again against the cage. So not only are we having a transition battle, we're also having a positional battle, and that felt so good and so realistic. This is even worse when it comes to the clinch grappling in UFC 3. You get into the clinch and the fighters just stand there. You just stand there stuck in the mud. I've said this a million times. In one spot, trading shots, faking your transitions, not moving at all. It's stale, sluggish, boring, and just flat out unrealistic. And it's it's something that definitely needs to be corrected to make the grappling feel a lot more alive. So there it is. The main things I dislike about the grappling in UFC 3. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things about the game. In some ways, you see a lot of flashes of brilliance. For example, when it comes to the simultaneous grappling, it's the most creative grappling system yet when you consider that. But in other ways, it's also the worst and the most limited. And because of this, I think it needs a lot of attention. The sort of attention you can't really give with a patch, which is why every time I talk about what needs to be patched, I don't really include the grappling, because to me, the issues with grappling are there's so many of them that I don't think it can be fixed with a patch. I just don't think so. I mean, yes, there are a few things you can improve on with the patch. You can make takedowns easier. You can make takedowns more realistic for sure. But the actual core grappling, in my opinion, to make it fun for everyone that engages in it, and not just constantly feel like a chore, like, okay, I've been taken down. Now I gotta sit here and fake transitions. Now I gotta sit here and deal with pity-pat shots. I gotta sit here and deal with babysitting my stamina. To make it more fun for everyone, I definitely think it needs to be reworked completely. And it's a UFC 4 thing. If we're gonna get another game, a UFC 4, I'd really love for the focus to be on grappling, and hopefully by then the striking would be in a pretty good enough place that a lot of the attention for the next game will be placed on grappling. That's my hope, because believe it or not, man, you guys might not believe it, but believe it or not, I want to grapple. There's so many fighters in the game that I want to use. I want to use Matt Hughes, for example. I want to use Royce Gracie. I want to be able to use John Jones and grapple. I want to use someone like Daniel Cormier and actually have a fun time grappling, as opposed to just laying there, babysitting stamina. But I cannot do that right now. I cannot do that. And I'm looking forward to a grappling system that is fun for everyone, even the fighter on the bottom, not just the guy that's on top. Not just a game where you get someone in crucifix and then you just hold them there the whole entire time. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? But that's it. That's basically it. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are. Do you have the same issues with the grappling? There are so many more that still left to talk about, but for this video, I just wanted to focus on the main ones, the ones that really grinds my gear. And I'm curious to see if I'm the only one that feels this way. Am I the only one that has these issues with them? If you do, let me know in the comment section. If you have any suggestions at all for the grappling system, let me hear it. Honestly speaking, guys, I only want to hear realistic suggestions. I don't want artificial game mechanics. Don't try to come up with artificial stuff. If you have experience with grappling, if you take jiu-jitsu classes, let me know in the comment section how you believe it can be improved realistically, not with artificial game mechanics. That's really what I want to hear. That's what I want to see in that comment section below. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Means a lot. I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep yourself safe.
All three judges score the contest. 29-28. For the winner by unanimous decision, Kevin the Motown Phenom
right, so there he is, all smiles after this one as he gets his hand raised by way of decision. Nice embrace there with his coaches and his teammates. He wanted this one in the worst way. Didn't even care that he didn't get the finish here tonight. He prioritized getting his hand raised by any means necessary. Certainly mission accomplished on that front. Doubles his money along the way and certainly has set himself up now.